Hey everybody, RPG Guy here, and I know this video has been very much people want to see this video. People have been asking for this video. People have been asking when are you going to finish your study, and I will say that I have played through the game 10 times in the last 2 years. Okay. If I sat there and did this 10 times in a row, I'd be so annoyed at this game. I would never want to touch it for a year. And I don't want to run into that because I love this game. And so the study was very simple. It was based on statistics, who were the best characters with 20 levels pre-promotion, 20 levels post-promotion. And during this time, I also fooled around with some other things. Without it conflicting with the study, of course. And I've come to learn a lot because there were a lot of people in the comments who said things like their spread's going to be so great you're not going to be able to follow it, to people who were generally curious what would happen, to people who flat out said stupid stuff like, well, I could just quick load the game and get whatever stats I want. And I'm like, well, you're cheating. That's not how you play games. Unless you suck at them and you have to cheat. I'm just teasing. Or am I? Because, yeah, somebody actually had the balls to make that comment, and then they deleted the comment, so it was even funnier. So jokes aside, yeah, I do read the comments, and I do care what people think. And a lot of people are very dead set on certain characters being either the best or better than others, and I wanted to remove any doubt of that. Now, I have here a spreadsheet that is kind of not, it's not all over the place, but it's not in any sense that major of a statement. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way the game's designed, the way the game is programmed. And I've reached out to some modders of the community just briefly who have pointed out that there is a pattern, but it's not like it's consistent or anything. And it has more to do with dead levels and what replaces those dead levels, which are very low stat gain levels. So some playthroughs you'll have levels where you get no stat bonuses. You just get nothing. It just says you turned to level 16, and it's a big middle finger. And sometimes it'll say you went level 16. You gain 5 HP, or you gained 1 strength, or 1 attack rather, or defense goes up 1, or agility goes up 2. And those are very low stat bonuses. And they gave me a suggestion to confirm it. They haven't done it themselves, so I took that liberty of taking characters to level 99 using a game genie. Okay, they sent me some game genie codes, and one of the guys did, and he's like, "Here's a game genie code that with 1 medical herb, everybody in the current party will get to level 99." So I had 3 saves on my cartridge, all for this study, and I tried it on each one, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting information that is pertinent to understanding this whole fiasco of who levels who, how, and why, and what. And here's something before, as a disclaimer, before we even talk about this, because I'm going to put who I think are the best characters in the game statistically based on various factors of spell loadout, based on where they appear in the game, based on how easy it is to level them in certain cases, but to be fair, that's almost a non-issue. And for people who say that certain characters are hard to level, I will tell you how I did it, and how I did it very quickly, because it didn't take me very long to do it. And some of you are thinking of certain characters that are hard to level, and like I said, I will explain what fights to do it in order to get everyone caught up. And I will also explain where I think characters, when you should promote, and by what battle they should be promoted. And then I will also finalize that with a to optimize your best output, because level 20 is it's not worth it to get characters to level 20. The bonuses aren't really worth it that much. And then I will also pick the optimal party for a casual playthrough, as well as maybe throw in a low level party as well. So there's that. So what was the spread? Well, the spread, let's use Max as our example here. Max's attack, or his HP, was anywhere between 75 and 80. Out of 10 playthroughs, that was the stretch, 10 HP. not a big deal. And 80 only happened once. Most of the time it was 77 and 76, and I would say that would be the median. Okay, so that was the average. His MP was mostly hovering around 13. I think one time it was 12. And then his attack on average was between 80 and 78. Okay, now that's not a big gap, and to be fair, the Shining Force Central number I think had him at 80 as well. So, but mine always kind of hovered there with the Chaos Breaker. His defense was anywhere between 63 and 66. Or 67, I'm sorry, 67. So here's the thing, that's only a 4-point difference. At this point of the game, 4 points of defense isn't going to make or break a character. So I ran that and got some opinions from other veteran players of Shining Force, and we all kind of agreed, yeah, 4 points by end game is nothing. It would have to be a large difference of 7 or 8. And I'm like, fair enough. And so I looked at more stats. The agility spread was anywhere between, which was the largest spread of numbers between characters, was like 51 to 55. I want to say, actually, no, there was one that he had 57. So that was the largest spread, from 51 to 57. That's 6 points, but it's still not exceeding that 8. Now, it did happen a couple of times for certain characters. Hanzo had a large gap. So did Musashi at one point, had a huge numbers gap. Adam had a huge number gap at one point, as did Blue and Xylo. So interestingly enough, those are all the specialty characters who don't equip weapons, excluding Hanzo and Musashi, but I still put them in that specialty bracket. They were the only ones that have a large ability gap. Okay, everybody else was rather consistent, within 4 to 5 points, maybe occasionally 6. And I think the conclusion is 8 to 10 stat points is a huge difference. So the disclaimer is that you can beat this game with any party as long as you level them up high enough. And I want to make some certain. I have some notes here that I've also taken that I'll go over with you guys about numbers. And the first study that we did here was mostly the median. I know that sounds tacky to say that, but it was. There wasn't anything that over the top with how it turned out and all of that. So I was very surprised with where it went. And it was an interesting run. And here's my thing for anybody asking. I'll give you this. Max at level 20, the first study was 77 HP, 13 MP, 80 attack, 66 defense, 6 movement and agility of 51, right? At level 99, because I had to do this leveling thing 3 times to get every character in the party to max level of 99, his HP was 92, MP 41, attack 96, defense 79, and agility 71. So an attack of 96 is what, 16 points higher? And we had to go 79 levels to get there? Yeah, that's not worth it. Defense 79 versus 66, waste of time. Agility went up 20 points. So even though they went up 15 to 20 points, over the course of 79 levels is clearly there. You can keep getting levels up. And this is where people that had done similar tests like this, but never up to 20, have pointed out those dead levels are probably filler levels that are randomized based on the leveling growth. And so sometimes you get empty levels. If you don't get an empty level, you're going to get a tiny little boost. However, one thing that was consistent, I'll give you an example with Hans, and even Xylo had this, Adam had this too, as did Blue and Gunce and Luke. Every once in a while, they would get fixed growth. Every playthrough, Hans always, unpromoted, got an agility bonus of 6 in every playthrough. Underpromoted. Okay, and it happened once, and then I think he had one that was a little lower, like a 4 or a 5. But every time he got a 6, usually an agility growth of 6 by around before he got to level 15. It wasn't always in the same level, but it always happened. Same with Xylo. He would sometimes get a growth of 5 or 6 attack. And it was rather consistent unpromoted when that happened. Okay, so I started noticing these little things and started taking notes of that. So to me, this is what my understanding is. There are levels that seem to be somewhat fixed or guaranteed. I'm not quite sure yet. I want to run the game more, okay, and actually document that better because I didn't start documenting that until about the 8th game. But I started noticing it by the 5th. I'm like, that's weird. Hans always seems to get that level right around chapter 3 for me. He gets that level where it goes up like 6. And I noticed it with Hans first. So then I started paying more attention to it, and lo and behold, I started seeing something that resembled a pattern. Again, modders probably can answer more of that than I can because they can look at how the game's programmed. Because yeah, that's just something it can do. Now, with that said, I have decided who the best characters are based on their stats alone. And I'm going to place them on this chart, as you see beautifully laid out here. Tier list. Now, I normally am like the anti-tier list guy. I hate tier lists. And to be fair, this is based on statistics. This is not, and functionality. This is not based on strategy. I will talk about each character as we go, very briefly, and point out the pros, the cons, and all of that. And I will explain why they are where they are, and I will also deal with some discussions that people have made in the comments about certain character types. So let's begin. And I put them in order of the list, so you can follow along with me. But Max is prime rib, baby. He is one of the better characters in the game. His attack is pretty good. His defense is actually pretty good, as well as his HP growth for maximum level. Now, I will say this: people brought this up to me, and we'll get to it when we talk about the Birdman. But he's up there because, number one, you have to use him in the party. You can't take him out of the party unless you mod the game. And the big thing is that there are special weapons, such as the Sword of Light, the Sword of Darkness, the Chaos Breaker, and many people might think they're exclusive to him. They're not. The Birdman can use it. I believe even Hanzo can use one of them. With that said, there's a distinct issue here, is that you have to have Max in the party. Why would you not give him the best weapon possible of a character who also, if he dies in battle, you lose? Now, there are strategies and speedrun strats that use the Birdman, and we'll talk more about the Birdman when we get there. But for a casual playthrough and for a max level playthrough of 20 and 20, it makes sense to give the Chaos Breaker to Max. And so he is a prime rib character. He hits pretty hard, and using those swords to their magical potency is also an option. Now let's talk about the knights here. We're going to probably put the worst knights in first. I'm not going to do them in absolute order here. Vankar is the worst. He's statistically the worst knight paladin. His stats were much lower than that of Arthur, Pele, and not Pele. Arthur and May. Oh my goodness, May and Ken and Arthur, and a lot of people like Ernest a lot, but unfortunately he teeters off a bit. He starts really weak, kind of like Arthur does, but he doesn't quite grow enough to make him that relevant. And to be fair, it's like, it's just Vankar is like a slightly better Ernest in defense on average. So like Vankar would have more HP and more defense, but his attack would be like 6 points weaker, 4 to 6 points weaker on average than Ernest, whose attack is better than some other characters, but not necessarily the best. So that goes without saying. So really, the turds of the Centaur classes are going to be Vankar and Ernest. And it just really comes down to what you want out of your attack, from your knight. What do you want out of your knights? And so they're both kind of down there because they're both kind of crappy. And it's just the way that goes. Now, we have Ken, Pele, and May. These are the ones that most people tend to gravitate to. You get Ken and May early on, and then you get Pele in the laser eye after the laser eye fight. And here's the thing. Pele starts really promising, but once he's promoted and a few levels after, he just tapers off to nothing. And he actually starts getting down in the earnest range. Not a joke. Pele, on average, his HP was like around in the mid 60s. His attack was anywhere between like 53 and 56. So that's pretty low. His defense was higher than was a lot higher, 57. So almost 11 points higher than Ernest. And then even on top of that, it was even higher. So, or, if Ernest went up and his went down, they were a little closer, but the average for Pele was higher. And Pele is, and Ernest in agility is about the same. So, as far as I'm concerned, though, because Pele gets that early functionality, he's a pretty good standard. He's not really pissy. He's not really horrible. If you're in a low-level game, he's very popular for that reason. He just shines early on, and that's a fair point to make. Now, between May and Ken, though, May endgame is doing pretty nice at 59 attack. Okay, that's the highest attack next to Ernest. Ernest averages in the high 50s, mid to high 50s. May averaged, let me see here, to the 50s. She never got above 62. So she's kind of up there. Her defense is better than Ernest. Her defense, though, was not better on average than Pele's by a couple of points, but that's nominal. And her agility was roughly the same as all the other characters, but though Pele was the fastest. So she's not bad. She gets to be in the standard range. Now, Ken, strangely enough, had the second most HP of every knight. His attack was at least on average 60. High 50s to low 60s. So his attack average of the knights that are on the list so far is pretty good. His defense was roughly in the middle, but he was easily the slowest of the knights, with an average of 50 agility, 55 to 59 agility. So, but you get him so early in the game, along with May, he's not that bad. I personally tend to put him about there, as that's kind of a better layup. Now, this is going to be the controversy, I know it. Arthur. Yeah, a lot of people hate Arthur because he's really hard to level. And then I laugh and go, you gotta get good, G-U-D. He's not that hard to level. You have resources to level Arthur properly. And you get them very early in the game, and unless you're not very good at the game, as far as certain understandings go, because nothing's ever explained to you outright. So, for example, you can equip the power ring on Arthur, or you can use it as an item. Usually, I tend to use the power ring as an item on Arthur, which gives him which is the boost spell. It boosts Arthur up, and again, it's a whole slurry of undead enemies he just has trouble killing, except in the marionette battle, the circus battle in Chapter 2. You can easily level Arthur up with the rest of the party there. And you only have to repeat that battle maybe twice to get in there. That's all I had to do. And you just power him up, let him pick off the marionettes, and better yet, let him pick off the dire clowns. Because the dire clowns, at least in the American version, they don't move. So you have Arthur use a spear and just keep using. And then when the power ring breaks during battle, you pass it to him, let him equip it, and then let him keep using it. And then I usually left it on him. I left it on him for several chapters. And then, again, if he couldn't reach an enemy, I'd have him use it on himself, and that was enough to keep him moving and keep him valuable. Now, if people say, well, yeah, but look at what you have to do it. Well, here's why it's worth it. His HP average, Arthur's HP average was anywhere from 77 to 85. That's huge. The most HP average was strangely enough, was between Vankar and May, and the low 70s. He's easily 10 HP average higher than that. He has some magic spells, and those are nominal. Those are more of a niche thing. Though Bolt is nice when you get Bolt. His attack 65. The average was 67. His attack was better than any of the knights average wise. His defense is 62. You heard me correctly. So that was the first run. Now, the other run of him, let me find it, was, let me see, here's another run for 65, 68, 63. That's on the lower side. So, and then I see a 65, another 65, 67. So there's a big spectrum, but it's still higher than all the other knights. And his agility is averaged at 65, putting him between 65 and 70. So again, every stat was higher. Every single stat's average is higher. He is the statistical best knight in the game, and I don't know why people complain about leveling him. I just told you the pro strat to do that. But jokes aside, he is prime rib. He is the best knight in the game as far as output goes. And all of that good stuff. And then having the magic is a nice little nod, but it's only useful when you get bolt, as far as I'm concerned. Or if you need to guarantee kill on a low health enemy. You're guaranteed. You can't dodge magic in this game, so it's something to think about. So Luke and Gort are pretty interesting. They're going to be. I'm just going to do them both at the same time because they're both going to go in the same spot. They are the beef. They're beefy. They're your front liners, and the column is in no particular order. Okay, the rows are in no particular order. Luke and Gort are interesting. Well, sometimes Luke's stats are higher in playthroughs, and sometimes Gort's are, and it's only by about 4 to 6 points in either attack or defense. Their agility kind of averaged out, though I want to say Luke was a little better. Is it Luke? Yeah, Luke was a little higher in agility every once in a while. But the strange thing was that, like, in my first playthrough, Luke significantly thwarted Gort. Second playthrough, he did better than Gort again. But playthrough 3 through 7, Gort was actually higher by almost the same amount of numbers. So what's weird is that they're very, very similar, and you can get them both their best axe. You can get 2 Atlas axes in the game, or ground axes, or whatever. And so they each both get their really good weaponry. So for me, I tend to like both of them for what it's worth. And it's interesting to kind of see how that all played out. Here's my and there's really no wrong choice between the two warriors. They're both very good characters for what they do. They're both heavy hitters with average damage. Above 70. Okay, their average attacks were between 70 and like 79. So I know that's a big gap. It's Route 8, but it didn't go that high that often, and it didn't get too low that often, so it rather hung pretty tight around 75. And their defense is incredible in the high 70s. Same deal in the mid to high 70s as well, with a few on the lower side. And their HP is roughly in the 60s, so they're not bad options, and their stats are better than, in many cases, the knights when it comes to attacks. To a degree, other than one knight getting the Valkyrie, because you can't get enough of the cool, Valkyries for every knight. So since there's only one in the game, whereas for them too, you can actually get them pretty good weapons by that point. All right, let's go ahead and we're gonna skip Gunts for now because we'll come back to him and we'll do the casters. Yay! So damage output wise, Aleph, Tau. There you have. Well, okay, let's go over the things, the specifics here with these characters. We have wizards who are gifted in a certain elemental. Period. Now they do dabble into the other ones, except for Tau. To me, magic load is the most important thing in the world. Tau is fast, but she's not that fast, so calm down. She's pretty fast, but she that tapers off with the wizards. Their average agility was roughly the same. It's weird because I always thought of Tau as being the high agility character, but really she is higher than Henri and Aleph, but she's not not by enough that it's like, oh my god, she's a speedster. She's the fastest character. No, I mean she's fast. She's fast. Arthur's fast too, but I mean the average for Aleph was 62 to 65, and then Henri's was 58 to 62. So it's not that much that it's like game breakingly fast, but there are things we got to consider. And for me, a lot of it is loadout. A lot of it is like what spells that these characters have and whatnot. So to be fair and to be very on point, Aleph has the most damage potential, but that's misleading in a way. She actually doesn't. And it's misleading because of two factors. Number one, her Bolt 4 spell costs twice as much as Freeze 4 and Fire 4. The benefit, though, is that her damage output is more technically because of Bolt 3. And that's a big point to make. Now, a lot of people like Tau because you get her at the beginning of the game, but I'm going to be frank, Fire 4 is crap. And to a degree. And the reason is there's creatures like Chimera, Hellhounds, and various other enemy types who have resistance to fire magic. More so than there are resistance to ice magic. Now, to be fair, there are enemies that have resistance to ice magic. Undead do, and blue dragons, and that's it. That's it. Everything else is vulnerable. But there are a lot of enemies throughout the game that have resistance. Even, I think, 2 bosses have resistance to fire damage. I think most bosses in general, rather, have elemental resistance in general. And the damage is actually, I believe, in order. Bolt hits hardest, Blaze hits damages the least, and then Freeze is kind of in the middle. The other thing is that Freeze has this very great range. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. And that's a big point to kind of make. So we're going to place Henri here. I'm sorry, guys. I know there's a lot of Henri fans out, or rather, Tau. There's a lot of Tau fans out there. But if you actually put in effort into Henri, even Aleph, they're better options. Mainly because of their spell loadout. That's the only thing holding Tau back. She has Blaze and then 3 status effect spells. One of them being Boost, which is pretty good. But the other 2 are shit. Okay? These 2 have access to pretty much every offensive spell. Henri and Aleph both get Blaze. Henri and Aleph both get Freeze. And Henri and Aleph, I believe, also get Bolt to some degree. And that's a deal breaker because even Henri can use Bolt too. So it makes you sit there and go, wow, that's changed with my perspective just a little bit. It does. It's a big deal. Even though Aleph gets the best spells in the game, Henri, you get her in Chapter 2. She has a great spell loadout. Some people argue she's a bit of a glass cannon. I can understand that. But by level 15 before promotion, she starts outshining Tau in so many ways. Mainly that Freeze, the reach of Freeze and Bolt spells. So I think I've kind of made my point with that. She's going to go up here with the beef. Okay. Now, Aleph isn't a bad option. The only negative is you get her kind of late in the game. And that, for a lot of people, is a deal breaker. And I totally support that. Instead of putting her on the standard, because she's technically a better wizard, in my opinion, statistically and performance-wise than Tau, she's going to go on the same bar as Tau because they're just not potent enough. Domingo's kind of cool. He's definitely, for a low-level run, he's going to be one of your best casters because he's already promoted. And there was an irony with Domingo. And to point out that irony, Domingo's average HP, even at level... Okay, let me give you this. Domingo, at level 20's HP was... This happened 4 times. His HP was 55. His MP was 58. Aleph, Tau, and Henri were all average in MP in the high 70s, low to mid 80s. So those casters had 30 MP on average more than Domingo. If we go to Domingo's level 99, just to make this more clear, his every caster had 99 MP at level 99. Except Domingo, his was 70. at level 99. So this is interesting, and this makes me spawn a theory about pre-promoted characters, and that I might need to go back and just run through the game and see what their stats are, just taking them to level 20 and then not using them again, and comparing those stats to the averages here. But I gave Domingo 40 levels of. Everybody got 20 level ups. Domingo got 40 because he doesn't promote. And I've learned something interesting, is that maybe that's not really worth it, because he just never really seemed to grow too much beyond the HP growth that he got. It'd be interesting to check out, but I will say that here's the interesting thing as well. His defense is 50. That's 10 points higher on average than the other casters. Attack is actually lower than the casters, physical, and the agility is 48. It's pretty shitty. So Domingo as a high level caster is pretty bad. However, in a low to mid level game, he's not a bad option. So he's probably going to go here. He also has the hover ability, and he takes hits really well. He also seems to draw enemies to him somehow with the AI. So the fact that he has a strong freeze spell, he gets a lot of magic and strength early on. He levels very quickly because you get him at level 1, and he is functional at that low level. He's going to go right there. Let us continue, because now we have our healers. We have 4 healers. And again, with healers, we're still talking about spell loadout is a big deal. Spell loadout is going to really dictate the cream of the crop when it comes to healers, as well as how easy it is to level them as well. The thing that you have to consider and keep in mind is that there's some things that need to be made apparent. Their MP is important, as well as that spell loadout and how early you get the character. Okay, that's going to be a thing to certain degrees, but because healers, especially one of them, has the means to play catch up like a badass, the healers are very much more to your play style, with maybe one exclusion, and that's Low. Low is shit. Low is the worst of the healers. He goes in the turds. He does get a level 4 heal spell, and that's great and dandy and all if you really care about that. His MP is actually not that bad. It tends to be on the higher side of 60 versus the other two who end up in the low to mid 60s. But heal 4 is the only majorly useful spell he has. He also has detox that removes poison, which isn't a big deal. And then he's got slow and quick, and the spell loadout's just garbage. It's just absolute garbage. He's the worst vicar, and he's the worst healer, because by the end of chapter 1, you get a better healing option. You're gonna get, and to be fair, you actually have. I'm sorry, my nose is a little stuffed up. You have better healer options before the end of chapter 1 anyway, and it's strange you get 3 healers in chapter 1, but I don't know, maybe because you might wanted 1 or 2. Gong. We'll talk about Gong here. Gong is kind of in the same basket as Low. The only difference with Gong is that his attack is supposedly better, which is weird, because even after 40 levels of leveling, his attack was anywhere from 58 to like 65, and that's not much higher than the other vicars. They averaged at 55. Okay, with Low being in the low 50s, more so of an average. Tauruses was in the lower 50s. Chris's average was 55 to 56. So you're talking 10 points of attack higher, but with almost identical defense, similar HP, and his agility. All of the healers' agility is roughly the same, with Low being the fastest. So with that said, Gong was kind of a disappointment. Now, I will say this. In 40 levels, he did not get heal 4. And in the 99 study, he got it. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I actually went to Shining Force Central to double check something. And yeah, he gets heal level 4 at promoted level 24. So, okay. That's weird, but okay. Um, and his MP is really low. It's it's in the high 40s, low 50s on average. To mid 50s is actually a more accurate statement. But that means low Chris and Tauruses, they were up at least 10 to 15, and in some cases 20 points of MP higher than Gong. So Gong is a very much, it's not like the Master Monks in the later Shining games where they are much better designed. Gong just kind of gets the stick poke for meh. And I tend to like him a little bit more than Low because his attack goes up more often. He's more functional, and clearly, if I had to choose between the two, I always play with two healers in my party. So if I had to choose one of them as my second healer, it would probably be Gong to a degree. If I couldn't choose my usual choices, who tend to be what we're going to be talking about next. We're going to talk about Tauruses. Now, Tauruses you get at the same time as Aleph. You get very late in the game, but he comes equipped with Aura. Now, he never learns a heal stronger than 2, but he gets up to Aura level 4. Aura level 4 heals the entire party for full health, no matter where they are on the map. Aura is a very broken spell. It's what he uses to level very quickly, and it's AoE healing that is on par with regular heal spells. Why would you even cast regular heal when you can use Aura? It's got a better reach. It can heal up the Aura's 2 and on, can heal massive amounts of party members. And the thing is that as he levels, he tends to have the highest MP of all the healers. But he also tends to be, his defense was better than Low by about 4 points on average. So he's just a jacked version of Low. And I don't find him that hard to level. Just Aura every battle, even if characters only have a couple hit points of loss. He'll get like 30 experience every time you do it. So he has enough MP to cast Aura more than 3 times in a battle. So it's not like you can't level this guy up. You have to choose not to level him or to a degree. And I'm actually going to put him as a standard. He's clearly a good all-around healer. If you give him some love, he'll do pretty good. He also gets, I believe, the shield spell, which is pretty good. Ignores magic damage for once. And I think breath attacks are included in that. I don't use shield very often, but yeah, but Aura is the big one. And then we have Chris. Now Chris you get at the end of chapter 1. And in the last battle of chapter 1. And she starts off really weak, kind of like Arthur. But once you give her a power staff in chapter 2, she catches right up. She on average had the highest attack of the healers, excluding Gong. Of the 3 healer / Vikers, or Vickers, however you want to call them, her attack was easily 8 points on average higher. Okay, so she could go up and fight with the frontliners in chapter 2 against some of them undead. She just can't take hits well, and so you got to play that very carefully. But she eventually does learn Aura up to level 2, so even if she's falling behind a few levels, as long as you get her to where she learns Aura, well, then your problems are solved. She will level up on her own. And you get her so early that it's pretty hard to screw that up. She's definitely the beef. If you had a pecking order of healers, this is it. Tauruses would be higher if Tauruses came in the early parts of the game, but he doesn't. Chris does, and it allows you to get her those coveted levels that she needs. We are going to move on to our archers. Now, there's a lot of controversy with the archers, and I'm going to explain that controversy and be very subtle here. Not subtle, but be very direct about technique. It really depends on how you play the game. If you have to take one archer with you, which I do recommend, there are only really 2 good ones. And good is subjective. It depends on how you play the game. But let's talk about the worst one. You notice I'm doing these in an order here. And that's Diane. On average, Diane's attack was always roughly 5 points lower than Hans's, with some exceptions, which is why I want to do more playthroughs. I'm going to hopefully get another 10 and then do another comparison. And her defense was almost always lower as well by a point or two. Now, her saving grace was she was faster than Hans, which is weird, but she was. Her HP was also on the lower side of 60. I got a few 59s in there. So she wasn't great, but again, you need only one good archer, and that spot is so coveted that she goes with the turrets. She's really, at the end of the game, she's performing like Vankar does, comparatively to the other knights. And it's just not a reason to ever use her unless you're playing in a low, terrible character mode. Now we have Hans and we have Lyle. Now I'm going to skip over Hans for a moment and talk about Lyle. Now Lyle is not an archer character. He is technically a assault knight, okay, or something like that, or a shooter knight or whatever. He's a centaur with a bazooka, for lack of a better term. Now, the thing with Lyle that people really like about him is his attack is a bit higher than the other two archer characters by about 4 points to 5 points on average, higher than Hans. So not that much, but it is still higher. However, his HP is easily on average 10 HP, maybe to 7 to 10 HP lower than Hans, and then his defense has always been lower than Hans. I did not get one playthrough where his defense exceeded 45. Hans has always been at least 44 to 49. Okay, and his agility is the worst of all the archers, but not as bad as Hans. I mean, like him and Hans agility-wise are rather similar. Now, people say, but Lyle gets 7 movement. He does in indoor battles. In outdoor battles and hard terrain, he doesn't. He's restricted. Hans is not restricted by terrain nearly as much as Lyle. So for the fact that Lyle gets 7 movement, to me is negligible, because it's canceled out by the fact that he can't move he moves jack squat in dense forests, mountains, deserts, marshland. He can't move in half of the battles that you have to get through to get to endgame. Now at endgame he probably shines for a lot of people because most of the battles take place indoors in chapter 9. So that might be the saving grace for a lot of people, but I could use Hans and never worry about mobility issues and still do similar damage. Okay, and to be fair, after playing 10 games to max level, he was easier to level than Lyle was. Now, I'm not saying that he's the best choice. In a low-level game, Lyle might be better, because when you get him, he's just geared up better. And the hard thing with leveling either of the two archers, Diane or Hans, is their weapons are very spread out. And Hans falls behind in Chapter 2 very easily, till you get the steel arrow, which is one of the chests in the circus tent. And then you kind of got to play catch up, because even the last battle of Chapter 2, it's freaking undead and he can't kill anything. So you really got to get the best way to level him is like with Arthur. You want to get that arrow in the battle, equip it on him, egress, and then he actually can start holding his own and start killing off bats. He can start killing off the mannequin creatures, and then he can even work on dire clowns to get him pretty much caught up with everybody else if he's fallen behind by that point in Chapter 2. But he's not terrible, okay? And as terrible as people say, but if you're having trouble leveling Hans and you get Lyle's like a godsend, because it just seems so much better, mainly because of the gear. But it's the same gear that Hans has access to. So just comparatively level to level, they're usually not that far off. And people like Lyle's for that big movement in the indoor battles or city battles. And to me, at the end of the day, it's a personal preference. Neither of them are the beef, but I will say this, that they are standards, and they're sharing the same slot because of that. Okay, me personally, I would put Lyle one tier lower. I understand the arguments for Lyle, and to be fair, this game it depends on how you play. So To me, they both are very standard archers who both outperform Diane, hand over heel, except in agility. And to me, I like Lahan's because he has that better movement. He has the better movement. He can get into position better. He can get away from enemies if I need him to in outdoor battles. He's not, he's not left to kind of rot on the back line in those outdoor battles and then have to play catch up in the indoor battles. So that's my stance on that. And then we're going to talk about Birdman. That's right, the Birdman. Um, Birdmen are situational in Shining Force 1, whereas in other Shining games, especially Shining Force CD, Birdmen kick ass. But again, remember, in Shining Force 2, they suck as well. Okay, Screech and Luke are terrible characters, on average. But what's interesting is that, statistically, Screech and Luke are in the same statistical format as Balboroy and Amon. Okay, their stats were relatively low. Okay, lower than most other characters. Balbury's average attack was in the low to mid 50s, as Amon was in also the low to mid 50s. Defense was in the upper 40s for Amon, once in a while went over 50, and Balbury was in the upper 40s on average, within 5 points of the 46. Their agility is in the 50s and the high 50s, low 60s on average, and their HP's in the 60s. That's with the best sword you can give them that can be bought from a store, which is, I believe, the broadsword. Regardless of the sword, people, I give him the Chaos Breaker, and he has 70 damage, and it's like, okay, you can do, but the max can't do that. So to me, it's very situational. If you're speedrunning the game, you got to use Balbury hands down, absolutely. And most people don't like Amon at all. And I understand that Amon's stats are on average a bit lower when it comes to attack output and it's usually lower when it comes to attack output. Though my first playthrough they were rather similar. A couple other playthroughs they were very close as well. But Balboroy tends to pull away just by a couple of points, so they're really, to me, they're interchangeable. At maximum level. Now, in lower level spread, you might get different numbers on average. But yeah, so to me, it's like Balbury goes here, Amon goes here. And you know what? Statistically, they're both down here. They share similar stats as these characters here. Their perk is that they can fly. And that's maybe the reason why I'm willing to put Balbury up here and leave Amon down here. And again, it's something you got to think about, is they're very strategically based. This is based on stats and performance, okay, and spell loadout. This is not based on strategy at any juncture here, other than when I talked about the two archers, to be fair. So strategically, many people would put him, up here or up here. Actual stat-wise, they're pretty crappy, and they need to stay down here for the time being. Now let's move on. So now we have the specialty characters. They're all one of a kinds. As far as Gunts goes, before we do Gunts, I know we keep putting them off. Let's do Kokichi and Blue, because they are flying units as well. Now, Kokichi is about at the same level as Balbury and Amon. He kind of hovers in those same stats. Now, some people like to give him some edge because he can use spears, but the Chrome Lance is the best viable weapon in the game. Unless you're giving him the Valkyrie, which if you have Arthur in your party, or May, or Pele, why would you give him that? Other than the strategy of giving your flyer this very strong spear that he can throw, and that he flies, he can do it from a distance. That's a strategical perk. So beyond that, it's better than what Amon can do. Okay, so I would actually put him here. He's pretty pissy. He's not the worst character. Some people prefer Kokichi over Balbury in speedruns. I've heard that once. I don't buy that, because you get Balbury so early. But it is something that I've always wondered, would he actually be better with a ranged? But he doesn't get the Chaos Breaker. So that's the deal breaker, I think, for a lot of people on that. And then Blue. Blue is a powerhouse. He's statistically one of the strongest characters in the game. His attack now here's a big spread. I told you these specialty characters had big spreads. His attack was anywhere from 70 to 85. That's a huge spread, and it was all over the place for his attack. Xylo had this problem too. The only difference was the defense was a little more consistent on blue. His average defense was anywhere between like 75 and 82. So that was a little closer than normal. He was very slow at 49 agility, and then his agility kind of was lower than 49, and with a couple over up in the 50s, but not many. So he was rather slow, but he was a flying unit. Now people complain he's very hard to level. I laugh at you. It's not that hard to level him. Again, Arthur at this point of the game at Dragonia should be self-sufficient. Blue now is going to start getting the power ring benefit. You use the same strategy we did for Arthur, we're going to use on blue. We're going to use the power rings boost. Well, not in that battle. I'm sorry, I take that back. Not in that battle because you can't repair it. So don't do that. But put the power ring on blue. And use it a couple times until it cracks. And when it cracks, you're hoping that you got at least 2 levels out of him. And you could. He fights the gargoyles. I let him fight the 3 gargoyles at the top of the screen. I let him fight all and kill off the mages and the priests. And he levels up fine. I repeat the battle 2 or 3 times to get him beyond caught up at that point. 2 times is not enough, but usually I can do it in 3 and get him caught up with everybody else with that strategy. And it's been relatively flawed. Let him beat up on a priest that keeps healing himself. He will level. It's not rocket science. You just have to be a little patient in the Dragonia fight to get him there. But he is easily the prime rib. He's the best flying unit statistically in the game. Again, if you're playing a low-level game, he's not. He would be way down here. Okay, if you're playing a low-level game, he's not going to catch up. Okay, but if you're going to play even a mid-level game, a casual playthrough where you aggress a few times to just get some other characters you want to use higher in level, he would be one of those ones that benefits from that. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the weird ones. Gunts. Gunts is interesting. He, on average, his attack was actually on the higher end of when compared to the other knights. I almost wanted to compare him with the other knights, but because he uses lances and spears, he was up there attacking as good as oh my goodness. He was attacking as good as most of the other knights. I think I said Arthur wrong for some reason. Because I read something wrong, but I might have. I read something wrong, didn't I? But I will make a correction here if I did, and I think I did. Arthur's attack was higher than the other knights in the mid to high 60s. I might have said he was in the 80s because I was looking at his HP. I'm sorry, guys. If that was the case, I need to amend that. Arthur's HP was in the high 80s or low 80s, which was 10 points higher than the next paladin on average. And then for guns here, and so I amend what I said. His attack was in the mid to high 60s, sometimes breaking 70, but not very often. But it was in the high 60s, and that's with the Chrome Lance, not the Valkyrie. So if you gave him a halberd or a Valkyrie weapon, it would be even higher. Now Guns, getting back to Guns here, I apologize. His attack is in the mid to low 60s. So his attack on average is better than characters like Pele, Ernest, Vanker. Okay, so there's something to consider there. His defense, however, has always been at least above 78. His defense is easily next to Blue, one of the highest in the party, if not even higher. His agility is he's really slow. And his movement is 4. He's obviously a candidate for the running pepper, or whatever it's called. I always want to say the running pimento, because that's what it is in Shining Force 2. Or the mobility ring. He's easily a candidate for either of those two items. I usually put the mobility ring on him because the pepper doesn't allow you to negate terrain. I believe the mobility ring does. I forget because I wasn't paying attention to that stuff as I was playing. But he's one of the characters with really bad mobility because of that. But he's easily one of your best frontline characters on average. So he's going to go up here in the beef. I don't think he's prime rib. His attack isn't good enough. You have to put an item on him to make his movement relevant because he would never get into the middle of a fight. And so I tend to lean on Gunts a bit low or rate him a bit lower because of that. So now we have Xylo and Adam. Okay, Adam needs some discussion here because you get him really low level and in a very late part of the game. He's one of the last characters you get. He's not the last, but he's one of the near the last. Hanzo's the last character you get in the game. But Adam's problem is this. He's unpromoted. He comes in at level 9 or 10, I believe. And the problem with Adam is leveling him. Now, people say he's the worst character in the game, even in some cases worse than Jogger. He's not. No. He's got potential. Yeah, he does have potential. And it's the same strategy you would use for Arthur and Blue to get him up in level. You just use boost on him, whether you do it through the ring or through a magic spell from Domingo or Tau, it can be done. And then he starts doing around 15 damage, which is enough to kill most enemies who are on the lower health side of the health spectrum. When he promotes, he loses a movement, I think, or something like that. I think he lost a movement. When he promotes, his defense and attack start going through the roof, and he has a beam attack that kicks in once in a blue moon. However, and statistically he's pretty high. His stats were on par defensively with Blue and Gunts. His offense was a little lacking in the high 60s, low 70s. But again, that beam attack, when it kicked in, it was, kind of nice. His HP was up there, not in the mid 70s on average. His agility wasn't too bad. It was faster than two other characters that I'm going to talk about, and one I already did. He's faster than Blue. He's faster than Gunts. Now the problem is the getting him that late in the game. He's easily gonna be down in this tier, and it's literally because he takes a huge knock from how late in the game you get him. I would say even if you could get him up a few levels, he's kind of pissy. Where his stats are good if you can get him the levels. His stats are really good actually if you get him the levels. The problem is that he's staying here. His stats outshine everybody that's at the bottom here, except in movement. And because he's so late, which would normally put him up here, but because you get him so late in the game and it's so hard to level him, I'm putting him here. Is he a better option than these characters? Probably even not. Actually, you know what? We're going to put him down there. I think I just corrected myself. Because even these characters will far be leveled higher than Adam. So Adam is easily the second worst character in the game. And we'll get to the worst, and I have some things to say about that, which is why we'll get to that in a moment. Xylo is a lot of people's favorite, and I can see why. His attack was on average 75 to 82. His defense was in the low 60s, mid 60s, and his agility is on the higher end of these specialty characters in the upper 50s, low 60s. And his movement is actually not affected by forest terrain. And it shows. He's clear. Do I have to say more about the guy? He is clearly some prime rib. He's clearly one of the better characters to go up in this region here. So yeah, I'm sorry about Arthur, guys. If I went on that thing with Arthur overstatting him on accident, that's my bad. I hope I cleaned that up for you guys. And again, he only has a Chrome Lance. With the Valkyrie, his attack is way higher. So, and that might have been what got me confused, on top of looking at his HP. Hanzo and Musashi. Musashi is one of those characters that even in high-level games, he still holds his own as much as he does in low-level games. His movement is pretty trashy, pretty bad. He's a candidate for the pimento, or the running pimento, the movement, the pepper that gives movement over the mobility ring, because I usually give it to Guns. He is going to be a beef because his attack average was in the upper 70s. His defense is in the upper 70s. His HP is in the upper 70s. He's slow, He's one of the slowest characters in the game, but he's just a walking murder machine, and I like it. All right, Hanzo. People give Hanzo a little too much credit, but they also diss him a little too much. In a low-level game, he actually is on par with some of your weaker offense physical characters, and then he catches up pretty good. His spell loadout's garbage. And people are like, but he gets the Doom sword. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. It's whatever. That doesn't kick in enough for me to care. But he's definitely, you get him so, normally I would put him here, as he's definitely an optional character, but you get him so late in the game, he gets down in the pissy. I know that's controversial for a lot of people, but that's my stance on that. You get him he's the last character you get in the game. He's in the last chapter of the game. If you're doing a low-level game, he's a nice addition to the team. But if you've promoted at level 15 and when I tell you to do it, you're already going to be well taken care of, that you don't need to worry about this guy. You won't be putting him in your party. And then there's Jogger. Fuck you, Jogger. That's my stance on that. People have tried to make cases for this character to be better than, like, let's say Adam, or sometimes they say they're better than Low. No, just what are you smoking, and you need to stop. Clearly, you're irresponsible with whatever you're smoking. Jogger is terrible. Every stat is 1. He never levels. People have said he's got 7 movement, and people say he's an item. He's an item character. I'm sorry. You have to make your party jump through loops to do that. You're basing that use solely on strategy. Whereas even Adam, if you got him 5 levels and promoted him, he'd be level 15. Promote him, and he'll just start tearing through hordes of monsters. Jogger will never do anything of that use. He can't even equip fucking rings. He's that shitty, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't tried during this run, but I believe my memory serves me right. He can't even equip rings. You can't use status boosting items on him. He's a piece of shit. He's probably one of the worst characters in gaming. The saving grace is that he can carry 4 items. But at that point, I could just take the sword off of Balbury or Amon and let them fly around the battlefield and do the same fucking thing. So to sit there and say that Joggert's better than any of the other characters, to me, is pretty clickbaity and very misguided. It's bad advice. If you're playing a low level run, like I believe I said I would, if you guys comment in below and ask me to do it, I might do a let's play using the worst characters possible, and I will use Jogger. But again, I just told you how I would use him. He'll sit with all my showers of cure. He'll sit there with healing potions or healing seeds and healing drops and healing herbs, and he'll just be doing that the entire game. And that's fine. Okay, I can beat the game with less than 1 character. I've actually done it with a reduced party. It's not that hard to do. So telling me Jogger, what are you gonna do in the dragon fight? I'm gonna stick him on the skeleton spawner and he can jerk himself off. And he'll sit there with showers of cure and use him when I need him. That's what Jogger's gonna do, because that's all he's good at. Okay, he's a good item user. Oh, but theoretically, you could have any character do that who has decent movement. So, as far as I'm concerned, I could get Kokichi to fucking do it. So, as far as I'm concerned, he's not a good character. Okay, if you're trying to justify it, you're reaching. You're reaching, and I think you're misguiding people with that strat, because there's better characters to do that strat with. Okay, even those other characters would level off of using the items. Jogger won't level. He has 1 HP, 1 attack, 1 defense, 7 movement. He's awful. 1 agility. So he always has his turns always last. He's just awful. Now, let's talk about optimal party. And let's talk about I'm gonna do my optimal party. Okay. My optimal parties, of course, Max is always in there. I'm going to be frank with you. So is Arthur. Actually, everybody in here is in that party right there. I usually only take, let me just grab Henri and Chris. I take 2 healers with me, so we'll take Tauruses. Gunz is good. I usually bring him along. I usually bring Hans because I like the movement. I usually will take Gort or Luke, whichever one starts pulling ahead of the pack. I usually take. I'll just put Luke there for now. So we're at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's room for one more character. And it tends to be a mishmash of what mood I'm in. Usually, in a casual playthrough of getting characters to level 13 to 15, I'll take Domingo. And I take Domingo because it's a flying unit. He's a flying unit, right? And you'll notice that I only have one other flying unit, though he's a hover unit. But that free spell. I have two casters. Now sometimes this slot, I'll put him on the end. This slot will switch. Sometimes I'll throw Aleph in there. Because if Domingo's just not pumping out enough, and these peoples here start getting leveling, and Domingo's just not really outputting well, or I get Aleph, I'll just throw Aleph in there and take Domingo out. And if Aleph is struggling to level, I swap them back because it's not usually a big deal to do that. In a speed, I'm not going to say speed run because I really don't do speed runs, so I'm not the best person to ask for that. But we're going to talk about low level. And here's the thing: in a low level run, your loadout's going to be different. You're not going to take Arthur with you. You're not going to take Blue. You will take these two. I still think Henri outperforms Tau in a lower level run. You're still going to go with Luke or Gort. You're still going to go with these two, most likely for your healing. Then you've got some variation. You're probably going to take Lyle, because Lyle's, Hanzo's going to fall behind usually, if you're not repeating a lot of battles. Let's see. You might take Gunts in a low-level run. It really depends on your personality, but you'll probably take Pele instead of Pele or May. You would probably take one of the two of them instead of Arthur. And you'd probably mishmash with characters. Probably take Gort with you because he's going to do pretty well by then. You might take Gunts. So we're at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And room for one more. Who did I not put up there that's pretty likely? Oh, Domingo. There you go. So that's probably your low-level party. And I say low-level meaning you probably promoted them at level 10. And, they're promoted at 10. You're level 10 in chapter 3, maybe. Whereas I'm usually at the end or at the midway or end of chapter 3. Whereas I'm usually level 10 by the end of chapter 2. Or I'm level 10 really early in chapter 3. And this is probably what you have on average, with a few exceptions. You might sub a different couple. You might put Tau in instead of Henri because she was just outperforming Henri, depending on how well your levels are between the two of them. There is a chance that you might do the two of them. Now, if you're doing it without knowing about secret characters, you're probably going to do that. And I'd say you probably put Balmori in there. These are all not... And Lyle's technically a secret character, but he's pretty hard to miss. Same with Xylo here. He's pretty hard to miss. Musashi you probably wouldn't have. You'd probably put in another frontliner, probably May or something like that. But yeah, I mean, in general, these loadouts are pretty standard. I mean, again... You can beat the game with any group of characters, and to be fair, there's not really a wrong answer to any of it. If you like Diane, that's fine. If you've been you can easily, for surely, rather beat the game with her. So I don't see why people have to go and defend characters like head over heels. There doesn't seem to be much of a reason to do that, because at the end of the day, they all perform much rather the same. So. I mean, I think I put them in the right order. Oh, Domingo goes down here. Yeah, so, I mean, again, Tau's up here. I think. I don't remember where it was now. But, you get my point. Again, there's really no wrong answers, to how you build your party up. And like I said, maybe I should play through what's maybe the perceived worst party with some. Here's my perceived worst party. Yager. I have to take Adam with me. Diane. Vanker. Amon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. let's say I have to take Kokichi, take Low. I take 2 healers, so I'll take Gong with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I should take a caster. For me, I would take Tau, or Aleph. I'd let you guys choose which one you'd make me take. Tau would be in there until I got Aleph, so let's just go with Tau for now. And what am I at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 2 more. I guess we'll take Vanker or Ken. So I'd have 2 knights in this one, right? Ernest. And then the last slot is kind of open-ended. I could take anybody. Because I guess, there's not much here. If I took Balberet, I think you guys would shit bricks. Ken's not that bad either. I don't have a second mage, so let's take Aleph, I guess. Aleph or Hanzo. But you get Hanzo so late, it's like, I'll just level him up. So this to me, might be the worst party. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you'd like me to run this party, let me know. If you want me to run a certain type of party of characters that are low level that you think are the worst, let me know again in the comments below. I'm gonna put I might do a let's play with the worst party that is you guys agree on. So if you see somebody who posted in the comments the worst party, thumbs up their comment, and then I'll see it. I'll be more likely to see it as well. So this is my tier list. Again, I'm not going to do lots of tier lists, except maybe for the Shining games, because I don't feel like tier lists are justifiable other than pointing out raw stats, because there's just no way to do the math. I mean, in other games, it's just not math. It's just that it all depends on your strategy and how you play the game. And that's why, to me, at the end, just playing the game that many times, max leveling, I could just say take 5 levels away, and you could still easily get through the game, and whatnot. So I think that this should give you guys a little bit of an idea of where characters kind of lie statistically. With 10, I'm going to repeat the study. I'm going to do it 10 more times and compile all that data. If you guys do this at home and you send me your results, if you can send me video proof of your results, I will gladly add your results as well, because the more people that do this, the more interesting the numbers are going to be, and we can see maybe my cart, it just does different stuff. I doubt it, but some people said that in the comments, or sent me a message saying that and then deleted it too. So I was like, well, it depends on your cart, and I'm like, what? I mean, maybe if you're talking the Japanese version versus the US version, or the Japanese versus the PAL version, you might be on something. But it's tricky, and I'm not going to get into all that. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. I'm your host, RPG Guy. Like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. Check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/JackTartStudios for more live gaming action. Right now, the Twitch isn't streaming anything at the moment. I'm getting my house remodeled, and when that remodeling is done, the Twitch shows will be back in full force. I promise. So, anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. We'll see you guys next time.